Hello and welcome to those endless mysteries. Today I have a new sighting from August the 2nd of 2020. This sighting might never be heard again. The witnesses don't want their identities revealed to anyone. So I've given each person a different name to protect their identities. I only found out about this sighting from a friend that knows the witness. He had told the witness about me, on how he had a friend that used to look into all this paranormal stuff, from ghosts to monsters. So, with the witness remembering this, he asked my friend if he could have me to contact him. He only told my friend Dan that he had seen something strange a few days ago. So, it wasn't until I called David that I really knew what he was dealing with. But it wasn't just him. There were six witnesses to this strange and scary sighting. Four that witnessed a monster, or otherwise known as a dogman, with two witnesses seeing the after effects of their sightings. So, with this sighting, I'm going to tell each of the witnesses' stories because no one sees everything the same way. So, let's start with David's story of what he saw that day. David said that him and his wife, Stacy, had made plans to go camping with their friends, which were two other couples which they are very good friends with, that they would be camping for 2 weeks. So on July the 28th of 2020, we all had met up and it was around 11 a.m. that morning when we let out heading towards the camping site. David said that it was around 4:30 or so when they arrived at their site. So for the rest of that evening, they set up camp. That the first few days of this trip was one of the best trips they had ever had. The weather was great, not too hot with just the right amount of cloud cover. But that on August the 2nd, that all would change. David was going to go on a long hike with the ladies, while Bob and Steve was going to make a supply run this day. So David, Brittany, Stacy, and Cindy headed out on their 6-hour hike. Everything was going great throughout the hike. Once they were within about hour and a half to 2 hours of getting back to camp, they ran into something that none of them could have imagined. As they came around a small bend in the trail, David saw what he thought was a deer being attacked by a bear. He said as soon as they noticed this, they all four seemed to come to a sudden stop. This attack was taking place only about 15 feet from them. So David said he thinks they all took about 2 steps backwards as he pulled his pistol out of his holster. This is when he said that the creature pulled its head out of the deer carcass and started to raise its head upwards. At this point, David says he saw that this wasn't a bear, but what looked to be a huge wolf's head, which was covered with blood from the deer. He could see the blood dripping down the side of its head. As he stood there, he couldn't believe what he was seeing. He says he remembers shaking his head to clear his vision, that it was hard for him to take in what he was seeing. At this time, he says that it really started getting strange. As this creature kept growing in front of him, he noticed that this thing had longer front legs than he thought it should. But then he realized that it wasn't legs that he was looking at. They were arms that was coming up with its head and what looked to be a human type torso as well. At this point, David was truly scared. This creature just kept growing in front of him until David was sure that this creature was standing around 6.5 to maybe even 7.5 feet tall, especially if you took out the hunch it was standing with. At this point, the creature that David was looking at took a step over the deer carcass, coming right at them. This is when David said that he shot this creature in the chest with his .40 caliber handgun. He remembers hitting the creature dead in the chest. He says he truly thought that this shot only pissed off the creature, as it made a loud growl while baring its teeth even more at them. Then this monster took another step towards them. At this time he heard Stacy holler at Brittany, "Are you okay?" At the time he thought Brittany had passed out due to the fear of the situation they were in. At this time David fired another shot into the creature's chest. This time the creature seemed to change its manner, while it still took another step closer to them. And again David said he fired, hitting the creature in its chest once again. He says that he could see just how smart this creature was, that you could see that it felt it might be over its head at this point. Then he said the creature spun towards its right. David says that at this time he fired the fourth shot, hitting the creature in its arm, he thinks. As it leaped off to its right, the creature took off so fast. David said he wasn't for sure just how fast the creature was, just that it was gone from sight within just a few seconds. At this point, he heard Steve holler for Brittany, while Bob was coming up onto his left side with his gun drawn as well. Asking David, "What is it?" David said that he just stood there in shock for a minute or two before he could answer anyone. Even though he had just seen something that couldn't exist, it took him a few extra minutes to process what had just happened to him. David said that as they were heading back to their campsite, he thinks that he walked backwards most of the way, watching for any movement whatsoever. He says that he has never felt so much fear in his life, that he has had nightmares every night since this has happened. He says that he keeps seeing the creature's head as it comes up over the deer's carcass, that he is sure that this creature was eating the innards of the deer that day, that it was after the organs of the deer. Now at this point, I made a recommendation that he might want to talk with a professional that deals with trauma. At this point, David said that he didn't want it getting out to anyone, that he knows how people are, and that him and his wife Stacy didn't want to have to deal with it, that the only reason that he was talking to me was that he knew of me from a friend of his. So with that said, I can only hope that David can come to terms with what he saw that day. So now for Stacy's sighting story of the same event. Stacy says that as they rounded the section of trail, they saw and heard some movement off to their right. When she looked over, she could see a large deer on its side, but that the noise at first didn't make any sense to her. She saw the large deer on its side. It was moving funny, but she could hear a grunting or even a growling sound. So as she kept watching, she noticed that everyone, including her, had stopped in their tracks. As she kept watching, she noticed David taking his gun out. Then she noticed what looked like a large wolf's head starting to come up over the deer. She says it had large straight ears on the top of its head, while she also noticed all the blood covering the creature's head. The next thing she says that she noticed was the creature's teeth. She said that its teeth were huge, saying the first thing she thought was that this thing was going to hurt or kill them all. She said at the time the creature first stood up that she didn't notice the body at all, that she was focused on its head and teeth. Its canines were around 3 inches or so. Just huge, she said again. She said that she didn't even realize that it was on just 2 legs until it just stepped right over the deer. That's when she realized that it wasn't a big wolf, but some kind of monster. Then she heard David's first shot go off. Then she noticed Brittany had collapsed. At this point, she said that she went down to her knees next to Brittany, trying to get a response out of her, saying that somewhere she heard a second, then a third shot. At this point, Stacy says that she looked back towards the creature as it was turning towards the right. Then another shot rang out as she was turning back towards Brittany. At this time, Stacy says Brittany was starting to come back around. Then out of nowhere, she heard Steve holler, "Brittany, are you okay?" Then Stacy says that Steve was on the other side of Brittany, next to Cindy holding Brittany's hand, saying at this time Brittany started crying and talking to Steve. It took Steve talking to Brittany about 15 minutes before she came back up to her feet. He just kept telling her to calm down and breathe. Once she was up and moving, we all started for camp. I think I saw everyone looking over their shoulders on the way back. But David was the worst, I think, Stacy said. At this point, he would turn around and walk backwards, scanning the tree lines. Stacy said that she was scared, but that when Brittany went down, she concentrated on Brittany, which kept her mind off of what was happening at the moment. She is truly worried about David, though. She says that he never got to turn away, that he was shooting this creature and it kept coming towards them until it fled off back into the woods. She says he is really freaked out over this. I remember seeing it, but David has had a hard time with it. At this point, I told her what I had said to David about getting some help. I know he doesn't want help, but that he might truly need it. So she said that she would try to get him to see someone, but knowing David, she said that she couldn't promise anything. Like I told Stacy, you can only try. I truly feel like David could have some kind of PTSD after this encounter, though. But for now, I'm going to stop this one here. But part 2 will be coming up soon with Brittany's and Cindy's encounters. I'm sorry it's been a while without a new video out, but I never had an investigation like this one, with it only being 3 days from the sighting to boots on the ground. So I grabbed up a couple of friends and headed out. We camped out and did interviews for over a week. Then we got another sighting report come in from the 10th of August from about 120 miles away from this one. So we went to check that one out as well. But that will be a later video. So part 2 will be coming soon. Till then, have a great day and don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button so you can keep up with all of our latest videos. And thanks for watching those endless mysteries.